Welcome once again on another episode, Aim High Club, your ultimate guide to the world of aviation. In this series, we're going to talk about conventions related to civil aviation. When we talk about conventions in civil aviation, the extraordinary international convention signed on 7 December 1944, named as Chicago Convention. That's one of the reasons why December 7th, yet considered as the International Civil Aviation Day. And also there are many other factors which we will be discussing shortly. However, the birth of international aviation conventions started in 1910 when the Paris Convention introduced, which was unsuccessful due to many reasons, especially the World War I from 1914 to 1918. But in 1919, Paris Convention put up some regulations related to aerial navigations, and as a result of that, aircraft registrations, airworthiness certificates, pilot licensing, and general rules in the air was introduced to the aviation world. The next conventions which came along the way is Madrid Convention in 1926, Havana Convention in 1928, followed by Warsaw Convention in 1929. The Warsaw Convention highlighted among these because it introduced a uniform law against international air carriers' liability, which ultimately replaced by Montreal Convention in 1999. At the edge of the World War II in 1944, 52 nations were gathered to promote international air transportation and to discuss the future of civil aviation, headed by United States, United Kingdom and Canada. The Chicago Convention, by far the most significant international convention, and here's why it is. The establishment of International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO, the drafted article for the International Air Transport Association, IATA, 5 freedoms of the air, propagated number of annexes to the agreement including Annex 17, Aviation Security, and a global framework of standardization for the development of international civil aviation. The Chicago Convention came into effect on 4th April 1947. In 1963, Tokyo Convention was legalized during the Cuban Revolution and the problems surrounding Palestinian statehood activities, which forced ICAO to have a worldwide legal instrument relating to aviation security. The term in-flight was used to endorse more powers to the pilot in command to restrain passengers who's jeopardizing the flight safety and hand over them to the custody at the next port of call. The Tokyo Convention can be considered as the first global intention to suppress offenses committed on board on civil aircrafts, but it failed to close the gaps and loopholes to prevent international offenses including hijacking, sabotage, terrorist activities and other unlawful acts. During 1960s, the hijackings created a serious trouble to international civil aviation, whereas the highest number of 118 incidents of unlawful seizure and 14 incidents of sabotage and armed attacks recorded against civil aviation during 1969 and 1970. At this point of time, Cuba increasingly became a safe haven for hijackers of aircraft who can easily escape without a punishment, which highlighted the major weakness of Tokyo Convention. In 1970, ICAO Legal Committee submitted a draft convention to ICAO at Hague for the suppression of unlawful seizure of an aircraft, was signed in December 1970, came into effect in October 1971, and that's what we call Hague Convention. The Hague Convention defined hijacking with severe penalties for lawbreakers in line with capital offense. The capital offense is the highest level of punishment in the penal law, example death sentence or lifetime imprisonment. The Hague Convention placed an obligation on states to either prosecute or extradite offenders, which closed off the safe haven for hijackers. The Hague Convention was largely successful and it's currently being ratified by 185 states, but a major weakness with this convention was that it only covered events in flight. 1971, the Montreal Convention. The Montreal Convention powered international civil aviation after several incidents related to aircraft cargo hold bomb explosions and aircraft hijackings and sabotage incidents led to another convention for the suppression of unlawful acts against the safety of civil aviation, signed in September 1971 and entered into force in January 1973. One of the key advances in this convention was that it criminalized those who were not on board involved in aviation terrorist attacks. As you can see, these 3 conventions are based on the term in flight to protect the aircraft from unlawful acts and interference. However, 1988 Montreal Supplementary Protocol has been adopted, a new legal instrument to deal with unlawful acts of violence at airports serving international civil aviation. The convention adopts a new term, aircraft in service, to enlarge the scope of application. The scope to consider an aircraft is in service is from the beginning of the pre-flight preparation of the aircraft by ground personnel or by the crew for a specific flight until 24 hours after any landing. The Montreal Supplementary Protocol was designed to legal measures not only protect aviation safety on board an aircraft in flight, but also airport facilities. In 1991, the Convention on the Marking of Plastic Explosives for the Purpose of Detection, adopted by ICAO as a preventive measures to curb unlawful interference with criminalization of certain acts and offences. There are substances cannot be identified due to some substantial reasons, such as it contains low density mass which cannot be detected by X-ray machines, for example, portable radios, laptop computers, toys. So MEX Convention introduced in 1999 to establish a uniform international system for marking certain explosives by the detection agent specified in Convention. Finally, in 2018, Beijing Convention broadly expands the principle of Hague Convention and Montreal Convention, adding new criminal acts of cyber attacks on air navigational facilities. The safety and security of the international civil aviation propagated by these exceptional conventions after various tragic incidents over the years of time. The civil aviation plays every possible measures to safeguard the velocity of the aviation skies and airports, leaving no room behind for criminalization, ensuring smooth, safe and sound aerodrome operation. Thank you very much for watching this video, and if you learn an interesting story of aviation conventions or broaden your knowledge about history of conventional movements, subscribe to Aim High Club for multi-dimensional angles of aviation trends. Till I see you again, have a super flight.